Thank you guys for having me tonight. So, in the interest of time, I'll keep things moving a little bit more at a better pace here. But tonight, I want to emphasize that you'll see some numbers, some statistics in this presentation and what they represent over this, clearly this unprecedented year. But more importantly, you're going to hear some of the story of CA over this last year from a handful of people who really experienced it. And I want to make sure that we keep in mind that hindsight, is a luxury. We certainly can't be afforded that while we're in the midst of what we went through over the past fiscal year. We can't reinvent what happened, nor can we ask ourselves to know exactly what the future would hold. We can, though, and we have control over this, reflect, learn, move forward, and, advance with that new knowledge. So we're going to bring you back to 6 select dates, do it a little bit chronologically here throughout the last year, reminding us of a couple things, one of which being that we did not, as an organization, operate in a bubble. The world was going on as it was, and it certainly had an impact on us. And what we decided in return had an impact on our community. Additionally, I think there's a lot of emotion that cannot be dismissed over the last year. A lot of the decisions that we were forced to make as an organization were quite pragmatic in quote unquote normal years. But in this past year, we're linked to some really strong feelings and emotions. So I want to make sure that we remember that. In the end, though, I think you'll see some of the ways that CA really stepped up and provided a constant presence and a safe space for this community. So in the interest of time, I will ask maybe the board to think about the 1 or 2 words that you would describe the past year with. And instead of going around, maybe just kind of reflect on that briefly for yourself. And then I would like to introduce you to a few members of our customer and member service center team, who was really on the front lines of, communicating with folks in the community, and really hearing from them and what they were experiencing. So Jen Wilkie, Susan Bisson, and Diane Imbach spared a few moments to reflect with me over the last year, and I want you to take a listen here. Oh, of course. And of course, the video. Hang tight for me, guys. I'm so sorry. And of course, I had like 7 backup plans, but here we go. All right.
That sort of sums up the year, doesn't it?
Right, exactly. I mean, it's apropos, I suppose. Let's see if this will help me out here now.
I would say a roller coaster would be a good way to describe it in terms of just always moving, always going up and down, and sideways, upside down, and lightning. Sometimes exhausting.
Challenging, but also rewarding and unifying. These are times that nobody's been through.
When we first shut down, there was so much concern and fear and uncertainty, and we were feeling the same things.
One call could be somebody so happy because something good happened, and the next call could be devastating.
They just need to talk to somebody to get answers and understand what's going on.
A lot of members were getting very lonely. And so like our phone calls were going from a 3-minute phone call to an 8-minute phone call.
Sometimes people just need someone to talk to.
They would have a question, and then we would hear about their lives, and we'd hear about where they were going and what their kids were doing, and which we never had before.
If we were patient and listened to them all, they ended up getting off the phone with us happy most of the time.
As long as they feel like they have someone that cares on the other end, you're going to be able to get through whatever situation it is.
We definitely have a lot more of a human touch now.
It helps us really understand our members and what they're going through. And that extends to not just members, but guests and other people in the community.
I work with an amazing group of women who actually care and do their best job and are willing to put in the extra time. And without them, there's no way that we would have been able to do this.
It is not just a gym or a ice skating rink or a tennis club or golf course. It is a place where, people are building those memories.
And it's family.
I want to thank those guys the gals, I should say, for giving some of their very valuable time to me to talk about all of this. And, this really speaks volumes in what we did in in fiscal year 21. And, the volume of the response that we actually had to give, and the team that we just spoke to being just one example of that. The Customer Member Service Center team responded to more than 20,500 emails over the last fiscal year and fielded more than 28,800 phone calls. So to put that in perspective, that's about 56 emails a day and 79 calls a day on average, with a furloughed group of team members working part-time. Lots of long days, as you can imagine. So this is just starting to tell the story of the determination, the grit, the resilience, and the endurance of this organization, thanks in no small part to our team members here. I'll try to breeze through these quickly. We're going to start with Monday, March 30th. And I know it is not within the last fiscal year, but I thought it was important to really set the table of what we entered into in the last fiscal year. So March 30th it is. And we're going to provide some constant metrics each of these dates so you can kind of follow the bouncing ball in some ways. We're going to talk a lot about people's experiences, but we wanted to make sure to ground it. So the three metrics we will be following are COVID cases in Maryland, the number of CA team members on payroll at any given time, and then the non-annual charge income for that month. So we're talking about memberships, programs, fees, anything outside of the annual charge. So to give you a perspective, on March 30th, 2020, we had a little more than 1,400 confirmed COVID cases in Maryland. We had 1,046 CA team members on payroll. And you can see about $833,000 in non-annual charge income in the month of March. To give you some perspective, though, that's actually compared to more than $2.6 million in the month of March in 2019. So you get a sense of how the pandemic is already having an impact. If you may remember, Governor Hogan just issued a statewide stay-at-home order. Parents had brought their kids home for the first time a couple of weeks before this, and we're just wondering how long it was going to last. Toilet paper is still in very high demand. We were all searching for it. And it was in all of this that our open space team returned to work. And I want to give you one perspective. This is Rene Ordonez. He is an open space special projects foreman. He's been with CA for 18 years. And here's a little bit of what he had to say about going back.
When that happened, it was kind of like, oh, well, I don't want to go out there because all these people talking about it, this deadly disease out there, then I don't want to get it, and bring it to my family, like I go back home, change my clothes right away before I get in there, and it was a challenge. They call us, like we need to come back, but we're still a little bit scared, we're asking a lot of questions to our supervisors. For every single trash can that we touch, or everything that we, playgrounds, toilets we touch, we have to change our gloves. And it was kind of like, oh, this is gloves, mask, everything have to be, it was different, yeah. We are essential personnel, like we have to be here, we have to come here whenever they need us. That was my feeling, and that was helped me to understand, why we need to be here to provide continue to the service to the residents, like we have to do it, I just can't wait to get ready to mask.
I had to keep that last line in. I just thought it was fantastic. Rene is a great guy around everywhere, especially downtown. And I thought what he said about essential workers, the open space team really feeling important and essential because they are to this community. Now, I'm not going to go over all these statistics because, again, time is of the essence, but just a few things that Open Space did last year. I think the one that speaks the most to me, and may to you as well, is that they collected 3 times the amount of trash on any given day over the past fiscal year than normally. It just speaks to the sheer number of people who turned to Open Space over this last year when there was really nothing else to do, nothing else open, and that was a means of escaping. And one of those many people is this woman, Mary, who I was able to catch up with around Lake Elkhorn. She called that area a gem. She said it was a peaceful space. And when I asked her how valuable is that, she goes, oh, I don't know, about a 20 out of 10. So here's what she had to say, and I'll mute myself first.
Actually, a friend of mine, long story, she beat cancer last year, so we walk every week here. And sometimes my husband, but sometimes I'm, given the COVID, we love our spouses, but we love our spaces. In the past year, the improvements have been phenomenal, and I'm going to really touch on that path widening over there because there will be bicycles and in those narrow spots and the curves, it was just a little hairy. But overall, people are friendly. People are friendlier, I think, with the COVID.
My apologies for the video lagging there because that irks me. If people didn't have this, Mary told me, where else would they go? And it's so true. We saw it over and over again. This was a place that people turned to, our Open Space. But it wasn't just about that. I want to show you a picture here. This is from the Columbia Patch. They published this earlier, or last year, I should say. Mary's a personal trainer, and she actually taught fitness classes, free workout classes during the pandemic around Lake Elkhorn. She loves the place, and she knew that that was a place she could gather people and make sure they were feeling healthy mentally, physically. And it's just one of the many examples where Open Space is not just a space to enjoy, but it's a space that truly cultivates community here. And again, so many people turned to it over the last year in particular. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next date. That's June 19th of last year. Here are the stats. We had about 60,000 more cases. So you're seeing those case numbers go up significantly. Our number of team members now down about 73% since the end of March. And I put in a little bit of a different statistic. The non-annual charge income was up $634,000 about. That's since mid-May, because in mid-May is when we really saw the impact of our facilities not being open and our programming not being open. So we're about 2 weeks after George Floyd's murder, which is particularly pertinent in this, this week. And that's when everybody was gathering around the Columbia lakefront in the wake of that to protest and peacefully protest and make their voices heard about that. June 19th was 6 days before Clyde's announced it would close later in the summer after 45 years on the lakefront. And Governor Hogan authorized the next phase of openings, exciting, including casinos, malls, and, you guessed it, gyms. So that brings us to Zachary. Zachary is a Vietnam War veteran who will mark 16 years with CA this fall. He works over at Supreme Sports Club as a manager, front desk mostly. And he had to choose between seeing his kids in person and returning to work last summer. He brought me back to that moment when he learned things would shut down and then told me how the decision to come back actually wasn't as difficult as you may think.
When I got the message, I was at home and I got it from my GM. She told us that, we were going to shut down, which was one of the saddest days of my life because then I said, oh, in fact, it was the time when all the Maryland had shut down. And I can remember just looking out my front window and seeing everything just seemed deserted. I said, what happened in this world? That, and I said, well, maybe it won't be long. 1 month turned to 2, 3, 4, and I said, oh my God, I got to get out of here. And then when I finally got the call to come back to work, I was so happy. But I was a little nervous. I said, I don't know what's going to happen. And a lot of people still don't know what COVID will do to you, and I don't know what it'll do to you or how it sneak up to you, how you catch it. So I can understand why they felt that way. But that's everybody's own personal choice, you know, if they want to take their choice or not. But me, I'm a people person. I need to be around people. I felt so at peace because I saw all the things, the steps that they took to make sure we were safe and that the members were safe. Sometimes we call them members, but I call them my friends. So I really miss them. And some of them told me they miss me too. And I really worry about a lot of them because a lot of them were up in age or, you know, had medical issues that I wanted to make sure they were all right. Because you hear so many deaths, say, wow, you know, you really don't know who has passed away or who caught the virus or who's in the hospital real sick. And there's really no way that you can tell. So you just hope you can see them again. Sometimes I wonder, do they really know how much we really care about their safety and the steps that we will take to make sure that they're safe when they come here, no matter what the age is, and we're going to do our best to make sure that they get what they need, whether it's the exercise program or they just want to just be around with the friends, play basketball or whatever. We want to make sure that they feel comfortable coming back. Every day, it seems like I'm seeing somebody come back that I didn't see before, and it feels good to see them. And feel good to know that, hey, I'm glad you're still around. Yep, I'm still here. Make sure you're all right. And I'll be glad when I can just hug somebody again or shake somebody's hand if we be able to do that again. I love this place. You know, it's a part of me.
If you have not experienced Zachary, I would highly recommend stopping by Supreme Sports Club. He is an absolute joy and pleasure. And what got me the most is when he said, do they know how much we really care? And I think that just speaks to everyone who came back to work on June 19th and beyond and wanted to make sure that we were here for our community and here in a safe way and put the community before themselves in some ways. We made the extra effort too as an organization to really meet people where they were or could be the best way we could. And one of those places, of course, is on the tennis court. And wanted to just let you know really quickly that almost between 95 and 98%, in fact, of all classes in every session has actually been at capacity over the last fiscal year, which is pretty impressive. Even more impressive is the fact that the retention of those folks, 95% for both adults and juniors. So people are coming back after this first time, not just, you know, there's nothing else to do in COVID. I guess this will work for now. It's a return situation. USTA league play is up significantly. Most good years, I was told by Anish, who runs the program, you'll have 4,000 total players enrolled. We're at more than 2,400 this year already, and it's not even May. And so that's a really good sign. And we've seen, CA has seen the most demand for private and semi-private lessons than we have in 3 years. So that program's really looking like it's set up for some sustainable growth in the future. The other one, golf, got to meet people outside, right? And you'll see from this graph, or I hope you can, and we won't spend too much time on it, but really what it shows is with the exception of June of last year at Hobbit's Glen, there were actually more rounds of golf played in the summer months of 2020 than there were in the summer months of 2019. Those dark blue lines at the top, that's Fairway Hills just dominating its past year as well. In fact, the number of rounds of golf played on CA courses during fiscal year 21 surpassed the previous fiscal year totals by more than 8,600 rounds. So a lot of people looking for, again, an outlet, something to do, some way to be outdoors and be with each other. And this was a safe way we were able to be there. Wanted to introduce you quick to Adrian Meskin. I actually talked to her back in fall when she was starting to go back to the gym, and she's been a nearly 40-year member over at Columbia Athletic Club in particular. She loves it over there. And I just wanted to share a small piece of our conversation about her returning.
I'm a big rower. I love rowing. At my age, I go at 1:30. So, well, everything's been cleaned. The negative is that I don't see anybody. And I'm such a extrovert. And so much of my going there was talking to people and seeing people. And I don't have that now. I just recently saw one person that I used to talk to all the time. And he said, I've been looking for you. And that was great. It was nice, and I'm just hoping that more people will come back. It's just terrible that I've lost a lot of communities. My only communities are really on Zoom. I mean, I am so glad that I'm working out, right? And that I am in an environment that I love. That's really all you can do. You can just open the door and let them come in at their own time.
And boy, that's what we did. Open the door and let them come in at their own time. And I just think Adrian's story speaks to two things. One, she recognized that she wasn't really doing much at home, and physical activity was going to be important for her during this, especially during a pandemic. Just this week, a new study from Kaiser Permanente showed inactivity is a key risk factor in severe COVID outcomes, right? So this is something that has always been important. Adrian knew it maybe before some of us, or at least knew it and acted on it. I just keep using excuses. But she also spoke to the fact that these are so much more than just sports facilities. It's something that Diane said in the very beginning of this presentation with the customer service team, that these facilities are a place where you gather and you make memories and you make community too. And I hope there are more people. I haven't caught up with Adrian lately. Just wanted to show you a quick graph, daily check-ins at fitness facilities. As you can see here, we had quite a spike when we first opened, again, June 19th being that first opening date, compared to May when we were completely shut down. But it is starting to really go up again as people get vaccinated. Confidence is really growing, and in all of this change, there's really continual opportunities for growth and development and new programming. And I would hope that this organization, and I know this organization, sees that as exciting rather than something to get over entirely. Next date, September 8th, 2020. We are now up to 108,000 cases of COVID-19 here in Maryland. You'll see a significant bump in the number of team members on payroll. That's primarily because, at least we believe, that some of the team members that were furloughed over the summer had to be laid off, unfortunately, and then paid out in their accrued leave. So, keep that in mind, and certainly a trend of last year as well that was really difficult for us to go through. Annual income or in non-annual charge income up pretty significantly as well. So we're seeing that boost from the facilities opening up again. Now, if you're a parent, you probably remember this date all too well. A Howard County Times reporter spoke with Jennifer Schwartz and her daughter Katie as they headed into Clemens Crossing Elementary on that day. It was Katie's first day of second grade. The reporter wrote, quote, "No big hugs or kisses were given before Katie went inside, just a temperature check, mandatory mask wearing, and a tap on the shoulder." And so Jennifer, Katie's mom, also gave this quote to the paper. "This is all very different. We just have to take it one day at a time. We'll all have to get used to it. We're going to give each other a lot of grace." And as you can see, Katie there in her headphones and distance from other kids, that became the normal across this entire community, across the country, really. And these are pictures from our programs with school-age services. And with that, I want to make sure that Jennifer Harding is featured here. She manages our school-age service program. And I talked to Jennifer actually earlier this year about her team's experience in all of this. And I think what she has to say really speaks volumes to what they do.
I think it's definitely been extremely important for us to be able to support the community and, those parents who still have to physically go into work and need a safe place, safe and healthy place for their kids to go and get their schoolwork done. I think I can honestly say that we've been able to be that support. And it honestly feels good to be able to get out and come here and see kids doing what kids do and what they haven't been able to do in a normal capacity for almost a year now. And the crazy thing is watching them, you know, they're not only staff members, but they also have families as well. And so just being able to try and support them as employees, but also as people, because, you know, they do have families, and it's very difficult. I can honestly say it's very difficult to balance the two. And sometimes, you know, even as parents, and you have to make certain sacrifices. And then on top of that, when you do have a job where you physically have to go to work, you know, it takes a lot of support. It takes, you know, a lot of understanding and empathy. And I think, you know, our staff have been able to provide that for our families in the community. So I'm very appreciative to what they've, you know, given up and how flexible they've been able to be, and just, you know, sticking this thing out, because we don't know what tomorrow looks like. You know, regulations change, numbers change, so that means that we sometimes have to change on short notice. And so I'm just, we're all of us here, we're extremely thankful and appreciative of our staff. Being here for the community and the kids is, you know, what we know how to do best. And when we were unable to do that, it's very difficult, because you see the kids in the neighborhood who don't have anywhere to go or don't have anything to do, and it's like, you know, it's like, so I wonder if they're getting their work done or not. You just wonder. We've got to be there for each other. The kids are, you know, they're the ones that are going to be taking care of us, and they're the ones who are watching us and our actions. And I think the only way that we can honestly and truly provide a better tomorrow is by leading by example.
Jennifer and her team, like, it was difficult for them not to be there, which is something that resonated with me when she was speaking as well. So they had to adapt to not only their own policies, but the school system's decisions, making sure they're compliant with the Department of Health, the State Department of Health. And they were able to keep about 60 children a week in full day childcare. They were on track, and most importantly, they were safe, which is great. And one of those kids is John O'Donnell. That's that little guy down in the corner. Staff here endearingly call him JoJo. His mom, Kasia, told us that, quote, we're happy to see that one of the staff members had worked at our school before, so it was a great relief to see a familiar face. This is not just about school. If you have kids, you know this has been a particularly tough year. This is not just about safety or learning. It's a sense of normalcy that kids really craved, peace of mind that parents really needed as well. And as you all probably know by now, we were also able to secure $41,000 in CARES Act funding to help serve those families as best as possible as we move forward with this program. About a month and a half after school started, on October 19th, the Art Center opened its doors again, and I spoke with Art Center Director Liz Hensey about the challenges that her and her team faced and the feedback they received.
The Columbia Association Arts Center is one of those venues that can afford the opportunity to people in our community to step aside from their life and daily grind and enjoy exploring their creativity. It promotes positivity. It promotes morale. It gives a sense of camaraderie, even though we're social distancing. I've had some wonderful responses from students saying this has been a lifesaver for them, which for me, that is music to my ears. They've made a real point to let me know how much it's vital to their mental health, to their physical health. It promotes so many areas in our life to be healthy in. When you have art, you're working on something bigger than yourself.
Liz and her team continued to exhibit to support local artists, and they were also able to provide or feature 36 classes serving more than 1,300 participants, and additional and more folks in open studio, which is really impressive during a time when everything was in flux. Vicki Howell was one of those participants, and she described her experience like this. Thanks to the Art Center, I'm able to regain a sense of control. I can restore my mind and body while keeping my heart open. I once heard a potter say, you center the clay and the clay centers you. That is exactly how I feel. The Columbia Art Center is a place of inspiration during this tough time. And boy, if we can offer a sense of control over the last year, I'm not sure if we can do much better than that. The last person in the community services realm I want to make sure you're introduced to, if you haven't been already, is Erin Berry. She is our new archivist with the Columbia, Maryland Archives. That's what we're now called, by the way. Our community's history can now be accessed online, and I asked Erin, after just a few months on the job, kind of to give some perspective about what that process means and, you know, the value of it for not just our community.
Is incredibly important just within the field of archives. It really connects not only the community that you're serving, but also the world in general. Having that ability to have your collection be able to be Googled is incredibly important to be able to be accessible. Yes, Columbia, the people in Columbia probably know about our archives and know that we have an abundance of information. We now can be accessible through even people who don't know about Columbia, Maryland. I'm just hoping that more people learn about the wonderful community that this is, and also learning the various perspectives that are within this community. And I'm hoping that through the ability to access this information digitally and being able to look for it in your home will allow people to learn all the wide aspects of this community. It takes a multitude of years. It's not just, oh, we decided one day and we purchased the software. It is a very long process, but it is incredibly worth it because, this material needs to be accessible, not just here in this physical building, but also online so more people can find it.
Basically, what Erin is saying is this is a massive heavy lift, and it will continue in years to come. Right now, though, as far as history in the modern age goes, we have about 1,300 records digitized. You can see kind of the breakdown there. Erin told me she's even getting requests from historians and researchers in Europe, which is really impressive. And so this work will continue, making our history more accessible to the masses, which is really exciting. All right, we're getting there. Next date is December 3rd, 2020. Here are the stats. You can see COVID cases up again. No surprise there. A little dip in payroll and program income during this time that just really illustrates the flux that we were in last year. You really couldn't take any sort of improvement or nudge in the positive direction for granted because you didn't know what was going to happen next. Now, December 3rd, the second wave starts to take hold, unfortunately, as we break records for new cases. Holiday prep, it was happening. We were all figuring out, okay, can I go to this person's house? Can I Zoom grandma, or should we FaceTime with aunt and uncle? And just trying to figure all of that out. Also wondering how early and often do I have to go to the post office to get everything out on time? It also happened to be the date of our final Newtown visioning and planning session with the consultant team that we worked with. And, in spite of everything going on, we were continuing as an organization to really put in the work to plan for this community's future. I was fortunate enough to talk to Lynn Fearcobb over the phone, and she was kind enough to talk to me about her experience with this process. She's the Town Center Village Board Chair, as many of you know, but she told me just how valuable it is. This process was extremely valuable, she said. It's very important that those making decisions understand how people who live here feel, and it's very important to educate those people on why changes are necessary. I think change is coming. Change is important, and it's inevitable. It's important to ensure that there are connections and open communication between the public and those making decisions, and I felt like I was able to be part of those decisions. And this I would imagine is indicative of the community involvement we'll carry into the future and the value of these kind of processes as we move forward as a community. January 15th, we are in that new year, but unfortunately COVID cases, you can see that significant spike. Things pretty steady otherwise for our other metrics that we're following with. We were preparing for a long weekend to celebrate Martin Luther King Day, and after winning the wild card game, the Ravens were preparing for a Saturday playoff game against the Buffalo Bills, and we won't mention how that ended. On a more serious note, though, the country was continuing to process an attack on the U.S. Capitol about a week and a half before this. Like everyone, though, we here at CA, we're just trying to look forward to the new year, make new goals, a fresh start, as you would say, and really looking forward to what that could mean for our organization. And that includes a familiar face. This is the head of HR, Monica McMillan Ajahi. She started with CA about 2 years ago, and imagine that. And I asked her to kind of look back on navigating through this last year, and here's what she had to say.
As I reflect through the last year, CA remained focused on taking care of its team members throughout the pandemic. And this meant cutting SLT pay, finding ways to keep benefits, paying people for 2 weeks when we instantly shut down. And we made the decision to put individual members of our team first above all else. The world looked very different for every single person, and we had to understand that. And then we just said, you know what, but we're all in this together. We were forced to adjust at rapid speeds, whether that was devising compensation strategies, planning out furloughs, establishing a remote work system. And in ways, CA was just pushed to explore new options and modern solutions for work, for the workforce. And it all happened very quickly. And this was a true testament to the tenacity of our CA workforce. We're now set up to offer work from home and other locations to our team members. And this allows us to attract and retain the best possible talent. While the number of people on the staff has rebounded to about 2/3 of what we had pre-pandemic, we are still very much recovering. The organization had to make difficult decisions for the sake of short-term survival and long-term thriving. But this year has shown us just how adaptive and resilient our team can be.
Sorry, guys, I have you on 2 different tabs. Again, apropos for this year, I suppose. So Monica just stressed to me that really, when it came down to it, we had to be compliant. We had to keep the lights on, but we had to make sure our team members were paid and had some level of benefits. And when she talked, it just was clear that that was so people focused in her eyes. And she also talked about this pledge to make the organization flexible, not only for just the moment, but the future. And she spoke to that a little bit with the work from home options that will really set us up for a success with having more options for employees. And we have come to our last date, that being just a few weeks ago, April 6th of this year. This was the day Governor Hogan actually announced that vaccines were open to everyone at mass vaccination sites, and we're preparing for one of those at Columbia Mall next week. This time, just comparing these numbers that you're seeing here with where we started in March 30th, 2020, we're up 417,000, I should say, more than that. Cases of COVID-19. We're down, as Monica mentioned, about 1/3 of our workforce, but our monthly non-annual charge income is up pretty substantially as well. As we've seen, though, throughout the presentation, really our experience as an organization and as individuals cannot be illustrated by statistics alone. So I would like to invite Milton to share any words he might have about the last year, what it's meant to him, and what lessons he is going to be leaving us with as well.
Okay, everyone, we're running late, and for the sake of brevity, I'll be short. I just want to quickly say, and I don't want to repeat myself from things I've said in the past, but all of you've heard me say my elevator speech when it comes to the what is Columbia Association. We're in the quality of life business, and I just want to say thank you and multiple thank you to every one of our team members who were there. For me, as a president and CEO, there was never any doubt that we were going to be out there for the community. Yes, sometimes, and as you heard in the videos, team members felt that I had to come back. I'm obligated to come back. Yes, they thought about their individual family members, but when the doors opened for our facilities that had been closed, they never hesitated to come back. I want to say thank you to the community and beyond, because everyone needed a place to go. You heard about the numbers when it comes to the use of our open space. People wanted some place to go, and I think as board members, as staff, we were proud that we were able to provide that place for individuals to go, whether in our open space, gradually with our, starting with our tennis and golf and then our fitness clubs. We did what I believe CA is all about. We provided a community service. We provided a place for our for the residents and everyone who wanted to come to our facilities. So part of that quality of life is that quality of life and those expectations, I believe, do not go away even in extraordinary times. And last, I just want to say thanks to the board members. It was a test for everyone. We asked the board to make some very, very tough decisions throughout the pandemic. Just think about, as I said to you earlier, in February of 2020, the sitting board passed an $80 million budget. All of a sudden, by mid-March, that budget was no longer valid. We took us 2 iterations to get to June 4th before the board passed another budget. And that budget was down to, I think, roughly $56 million. We heard your emotions, and they were very clear, but also I appreciate and thank you that you listened to the facts. You listened to the data. You were pushed by the community about all the questions why we couldn't do some of the things we did, but you still said that CA, this is what we can do, and don't look at it as part of us eliminating any program. We're just dealing with our circumstances, and a lot of those circumstances were dictated to us by external factors that we had no control over. So once again, I just said thank you to the board. You trusted the staff. We heard you. As I said, I admit there's a lot of emotions and a lot of there was a lot of questions, and a lot of questions was asked of us, but we got there. And I say got there, but not understanding that we're still in a pandemic and we're going forward. And as I say to the board, to the team members, and to the community, there's a lot of lessons that have been learned, and please don't forget those lessons, because otherwise we're gonna get blindsided again. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Milton. And I'll leave you all with this quote from none other than Mr. Rouse himself. Whatever ought to be can be. I actually have this on my email signature. And I'll just leave you with this. What ought to be, certainly that idea of what ought to be has shifted in the last year. We didn't do it all, but we did a heck of a lot. This is not the same organization as it was in March of 2020, but now we can really take what we learned and help define the future of CA. And I hope that this presentation just touched a little bit on the compassion and, again, resilience and the tenacity of not only our team members, but our community. Andy, I'll defer to you. I know this was the time where we're going to let people reflect for themselves, but for the sake of time, I don't know if you want to forego that exercise.
Actually, Danica, no, let's let the board, we'll speed through the rest of the agenda after this. But you had a list, and I think we really should give the board an opportunity.
Absolutely.
In a minute. So Danica, why don't you go through your random list?
You bet. Alan?
I'm just going to say a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank you, Danica, for adding the captions, the closed captions on the videos. That was something that a nice touch and something that's all too often forgotten in that kind of situation. And I'm just going to say that my words for this last year is an unprecedented perfect storm. So many things came together, things even beyond what we've already talked about that caused this year to be that. And one of the things that I've been very much impressed with is the willingness of the staff to sacrifice, that everything from the pay cuts that were taken, furloughs, the whole thing, that the staff took it and did what was needed to be done. So thank you all.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. Ginny?
Yeah, thank you. Danica, fantastic job as usual. And you and the marketing guys are just wonderful every day. Thank you. In terms of the last year, I really saw it as a challenge, but also as an opportunity. And I think we did take advantage of many of the opportunities to form more partnerships, to reinvent CA. I still think we've got a long way to go, but it's just fantastic to see the progress. I thought I really appreciated our staff in the past, but this year, they are just unbelievable. They are fantastic people. They've been through a lot in terms of sacrifices, personal, salary cuts, unemployed. A lot of things happen to them. Yet they just keep coming back, caring about CA and doing their job and caring about the people they serve. Milton, you are a phenomenal leader. Just thank you so much, and we're going to miss you. And the other senior staff, and I'd start naming them, but let me just say, you guys have been fantastic. You didn't leave. You hung in there. You stayed with us. And the board could not have made it without the staff from all levels, from the guys that are cleaning the gyms to Milton. It's just unbelievable. When I go into a gym, I thank the person that's cleaning the treadmill near me. Thanks for coming to work, et cetera. We really appreciate the staff. Thank you so much. And what you've done for the residents, I think you probably prevented a lot of depression, quite frankly, in the way you've talked to the residents, and you showed examples of that. I also want to thank the board. It's been a fun board to work with. I know we've all had our ups and downs and disagreements, but I think we all care very much about the organization and about the people it serves. And I want to thank you. I've enjoyed working with you. I do not enjoy doing this virtually, though. I miss getting together with you guys. So thank you so much. And Milton, again, you will be missed. Thank you.
Andy, anything you want to touch on?
I just reiterate, I mean, because Ginny had said it, it's like last year, it just reinforced how great our CA team members are. I mean, they just, rose to the occasion. It was a really, really tough year, incredibly difficult year. And I mean, I knew we had good team members, from senior staff all the way down. And it's just, yeah, you can see it, through the whole past year. And it's really, really good. And I'm glad to be part of this organization. And probably the takeaway that I took is we really have to make sure that we have a good communication strategy. I mean, just so we can communicate with the community. And that's what my takeaway, and we're just going to make sure we do that.
No pressure. Thanks, Andy. Nancy, you're up. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would like to add a good communication strategy. I'm not going to be back, but a good communication strategy for the board. with the board, because I really felt that that was a major area that needed work. I'm so glad that Tim and Danica have joined the staff. We do have an outstanding staff, and now I think you two have rounded it out so that we can have a much more positive impact in our community than we have had over the past several years. And again, I just want to reiterate from day one, in the past 8 years when I started here, I have yelled communication, 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 and you guys are doing it. And I really hope that whoever is the chair of the board next month will also make a point of becoming much more communicative so that there's nothing hidden from the board of the directors. And I want to say, since this is my last meeting, thank you to the board members. It's been a real education, and I've really, in many ways, appreciated it. And I want to thank the senior staff especially, and Milton. I think that CA has gained an awful lot from Milton's leadership, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to the senior staff because they have hung in there, and we do have a phenomenal team. And I'm really proud of all of you. And I'm really very proud of Wild Lake. I'm very glad that I represented my community because it's been a real privilege and an honor to do that. And I want to thank them for the nice words that I've heard from many people recently. So thank you, and I'm done.
And thank you, Nancy, for your service.
Shari, you were up next. Did you want to add something?
I'm just, in the interest of time, I'm going to make this short. This was an incredibly challenging year and an incredibly intensive year. Those were the two words that really came to me. Some of the lessons, some of the takeaways, expect the unexpected. That seems to be the way life is going these days. It's a very Buddhist kind of philosophy that nothing is permanent, everything is changing, and yet I'm so impressed with the equanimity that so many people have brought to this, to continue to keep working, to continue to pull together as a team. Again, the addition of social media, and no pressure, but I think CA is moving in a wonderful direction along these lines. And the fact that everyone pulled together and was able to move with a certain flexibility during this time period. The future belongs to organizations that are flexible and that are nimble and that are willing to try new things. And I think there is a new spirit now as a consequence of all of this. So I would also really like to thank everyone on the staff, top to bottom, for pulling together as a great team. Thank you.
Well said. Dick.
Okay, hey, I'm not muted. I'm amazed. Went looking for the dial here. Hey, this has been quite a year, and as has been repeatedly said, the staff's done a great job. And Milton, you really kept the ship afloat and steering in the right direction, and that is very much appreciated. I would like to have a particular point of congratulations to Susan, who has had to really dance with those numbers again and again and again and again, and has responded really well at keeping us informed on just what all the possibilities were there, and you really did one hell of a job. And Danica, you and Tim parachuted into chaos and have, I think, done a really good job of stepping up our communications effort. And, if I'm still here next year, I'm going to be on your case all the time, but but it's hard to find fault. You guys are really doing a terrific job, and I do appreciate it. And I also just like to say, this board has just been like a family, and I hope we can all stay together next year. And Nancy, we'll keep in touch. Okay. So that's all I have to say.
All right, Janet, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just echo a lot of what's already been said. But I mean, the big thing that I see is the opportunity now. You know, watching the organization pivot over the last year has been really inspiring. And I think that we are now in a place where there is a ton of opportunity to continue to innovate. And I look forward to seeing what the organization does with that. I'd also just like to thank everybody and, challenge us to keep that line of thinking so that we don't lose it once things start opening up. Thanks.
Really well put. Lynn?
Yeah, again, I'm going to just start echoing what everybody else said. It was challenging. It was also inspiring. It was difficult, but it was so good to see how everybody tried to work through things. I think staff did a magnificent job. Thank you all. And yes, Danica and Tim, you have been wonderful additions. Like Janet, I'm looking forward to the changes. I think that we've learned a lot from having to look at who we were. We all know we're not that anymore. So I'm really excited to look forward to next year. And I'm sorry that we will, again, be missing Nancy and Milton and, hopefully we will see. Good luck to everybody else. What can I say? But hopefully we will be able to work together. And actually, whether you're on the board or not anymore, I know when I get off the board, I think it would be great if some of us who have experienced it but are not in there with this intensity to be able to continue to work with CA, an advisory position, something, so we can also help, continue to bring the community in and get better and better.
Thank you, Lynn. And last but not least, Jasmine.
Well, there's really not much to say that hasn't already been said, but I will say this, the word that keeps coming to me as we sort of leave 2020, well, the 2020 word is dumpster fire. We know that, but as we leave 2020 and get back into 2021, the word that keeps coming to mind is resilience. And I think we've had to be extremely resilient. I've seen it in the staff. I've seen it in my fellow board members. I've seen it in the community. And, I just think of that Japanese proverb that says, fall down 7 times, get up 8. And I feel like that's what we've been doing. And we're just going to keep getting up and keep going day to day and move forward. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm going to keep that proverb. Andy, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you guys so much for your time. I know it was a long presentation to add to a long meeting, so I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Danica, and it was really a very, very good way you did it.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to have to get back to our agenda now.